wealthy woman mocked a black waiter and forced him to play the piano. But what happened next left everyone speechless. La Fontaine wasn't just any restaurant. It was a sanctuary of elegance. Candlelit tables, soft classical music, and guests dressed in designer clothes. The kind of place where appearances meant everything. Amid the fine china and hushed conversations worked Elias, a 22-year-old black waiter. He moved quietly and efficiently, always respectful, always in the background. To most, he was invisible, just part of the service. But Elias had a secret. Behind that calm demeanor was a musician's heart. A self-taught pianist he had learned on an old, broken keyboard gifted by his grandmother. Every spare minute, every ounce of energy outside of work was devoted to practicing, chasing a dream that felt impossibly far. That dream lived in the grand piano that sat untouched in the corner of the restaurant. Polished and perfect, it symbolized everything he longed for: expression, passion, purpose. One evening, the door swung open and in walked Clarice Davenport, wealthy, elegant, and dripping with entitlement. With her came the scent of expensive perfume and the air of superiority. She and her friends were regulars, and tonight Clarice seemed especially performative. Her laughter was louder, her stories more dramatic. And then she spotted Elias. Her eyes locked on him, and a smirk spread across her face. When he brought wine to the table, she asked, almost mockingly, "What's your name?" "Elias, ma'am," he said politely. "Elias," she repeated, savoring the sound. "What do you do when you're not serving food?" He hesitated. I like music." "Oh? What kind of music?" "I play the piano," he said quietly. Her face lit up, not with admiration, but amusement. "A waiter who plays piano? That's adorable," she laughed. "You must show us." He tried to deflect. "I'm working right now, ma'am." But Clarice wasn't letting go. "Oh, come on, let the boy play," she said to the manager, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Let's see this hidden talent." The manager looked away. No help there. Elias stood still for a moment. Every eye was on him. The room had grown tense, expectant, waiting for the show. With no other choice, he walked toward the piano. He sat down, hands trembling slightly. He closed his eyes, and then he played. Clair de Lune, delicate, emotional, hauntingly beautiful. The room fell silent. Clarice's smirk vanished. Every note told a story of struggle, of dreams, of quiet strength. Elias wasn't performing anymore. He was speaking through music. When the final note faded, the silence was heavy. Then came the applause, loud, unstoppable. Guests stood. Some wiped tears. Clarice sat frozen, the smugness gone, replaced by something unfamiliar: humility. Elias stood, bowed his head slightly, and returned to work. He didn't gloat, he didn't smile. But something had shifted, not just in the room, but within him. The boy they overlooked had shown them his soul. He wasn't just a waiter, he was an artist. "You did more than enough." "Congratulations," someone whispered quietly to Elias as he slowly gathered his things after the performance. But those words didn't spark pride in him. Instead, they stirred a deep reflection. This night wasn't about proving anything to Clarice or the restaurant guests. It was about remembering who he truly was, beneath the uniform, beyond the waiter's role. A young man with a passion, a dream, a soul shaped by music. As Elias moved through the dimly lit restaurant toward the exit, he noticed Clarice sitting alone at her table. Her friends had already left, leaving her in a quiet, unfamiliar stillness. When Elias passed her table, their eyes met for a brief moment. There was something in her gaze, no longer mocking or cold, but softer, almost hesitant. Maybe curiosity, maybe regret. "Good night, ma'am," Elias said, his voice steady but gentle. There was a pause, Then, barely above a whisper, she answered, "Good night, Elias." Outside, the cool evening air greeted him like a welcome friend. The city lights twinkled faintly through the darkness, reflecting off wet pavement and shop windows. As he walked home, a strange lightness settled over him, a feeling of strength he hadn't known before. Music had always been his refuge. As a child, it was the melody that carried him away from hunger and hardship. As a teenager, it was the hope that lifted him beyond the narrow streets of his neighborhood. Tonight, music had become his voice, the language through which he claimed his true self. The next morning, a call from the restaurant manager caught Elias by surprise. "A customer left something for you," the manager said, his tone unusually serious. Curious and cautious, Elias arrived to find a plain white envelope waiting for him, his name written neatly across the front. His hands trembled slightly as he carefully opened it. Inside was a letter, written in an elegant script. It was from Clarice. "Elias, I don't usually admit when I'm wrong, but last night you left me speechless. Your music, it struck something deep inside me, something I hadn't expected. There's a young talent program at a music academy in New York. I have connections there, and I want to help you. I'm willing to cover your tuition and travel expenses if you choose to apply. The decision is yours alone. Clarice." Elias read the letter again, disbelief and confusion mixing with a cautious hope. Was this genuine kindness, or a way to ease her own guilt? To find clarity, he went to the one person whose opinion mattered most, his Aunt Alcira. He found her in her modest kitchen, the scent of coffee filling the air, an old song playing softly on the radio. He handed her the letter. She read it slowly, her eyes softening with every word. When she finished, she looked at him with a knowing smile. "Elias," she said, "I've known you since you were a boy. You've always had a heart bigger than your pride. Maybe this woman tried to belittle you, but now she sees what we've always known. You have something special. This is your moment. Take this chance, not to prove anything to her or anyone else, but because you deserve to follow your dreams." Her words settled in his heart and stayed there, steady and sure. Days later, with a calm resolve, Elias picked up his phone and dialed the number Clarice had left at the bottom of the letter. When she answered, her voice was firm, but less cold than before. "I've decided to accept your offer," Elias said clearly. "But I'm doing this because I believe in myself, not to prove anything to you or anyone else." A pause. Then she replied softly, "That's exactly why you deserve this opportunity, Elias." From that moment on, everything began to change. Elias threw himself into practice with renewed passion. Every note, every chord, every melody became a step toward his future. He completed his application to the academy, each form filled with hope and determination. Back at the restaurant, the atmosphere was different. Some guests who had heard his music the night before smiled and nodded in recognition. Others greeted him with a polite respect he hadn't seen before. But Clarice was nowhere to be seen. Her absence brought him a strange relief and a lingering question. Was she truly sincere? In the quiet moments between shifts, Elias often replayed that night. The music, the feeling of freedom, the power of being truly seen. He knew this opportunity might be the one chance to leave behind the doubts and limitations others had placed on him. And so, on the morning of his audition, Elias woke early, his heart pounding but steady. He dressed carefully, took a deep breath, and stepped out into the world, carrying only his music, his courage, and a heart full of purpose.